Hey, Granny, you're situation. Come. Oh, okay. To bite my tail. To dump. She's too happy. Ah! Oh, oh. No, look. Oh.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, you're in my living room. This is the 2x7 foot section that I've been working on this month. Today, I'm going to be bringing you down on a smaller tripod, which is this one back here. And I'm going to walk you through what I do in order to let me know where the track is going to be. I don't know if you can see up there, because I know I can't, but I've already got the yard marked out. I was going to do that on camera. Slip of the brain. Forgot to hit the record button. That was actually going to be my first video in the series. Now, unfortunately, track marking is going to be number 3. As you can see from the previous 2 videos, I've already built the frame and I've already built the legs. The tabletop is cut. It's 7 foot long by 2 feet wide. I've got to mark my track center lines for the bottom level, which will be at 1 inch height. My next video on this will be my actual track risers, which will actually, this will be cut. And that's why I need to do the track plan first. If I don't do the track plan first, I don't know where I'm going to cut this. All my track center lines are 1.25 inches apart. However, I've decided to go back 1.5 inches from the front to the track center line. So that's got to be marked out to where I know where the edge of track is. I am going to be cutting this because right now it's pretty heavy. So if I could skeleton this out in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to try to do that and save some weight. There will be foam and paper mache material, stuff like that, that I'm going to use to actually scenic it to make it lighter. But there's a lot of spaces where there won't be any track that I'm going to honeycomb out and actually make this board lighter. Now I got to do that without losing any actual physical strength of the layout. So just follow along as I mark this out, and I can find spots where it's going to be pretty bald and I can actually cut a lot of extra plywood out of this thing. So follow along with me real quick. The track plan's kind of in my head right now, and I'm going to draw this out and you can watch me walk through this process. This here's a basic representation. I have what is going to be my yard already marked out. How I did this was pretty simple. I just laid down with the tape measure where my lines are going to be, and then come back knowing where all my straight tracks are, and just very simply put turnouts down where I knew there was going to be curves. I've marked the turnouts with these long lines that let me know where the turnouts are going to be. Now I'm doing this with nothing more than a left and a right hand turnout, so you got to kind of bear with me. Now my track spacing is 1.25 inches like I said, and as you can see there's no marks on this side. Now I do have some marks at the very edge. Alright, this is a spur, this is siding, and this is main line. This is going back to the power plant. I need to continue these lines on out to where they're actually going to be on this board on the side. So bear with me for a minute. I need to grab my tape measure and my yardstick, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, I'm back. One thing that you're going to see me do that's rather confusing is I'm actually measuring from the far side of the layout up to 24 inches. The reason why is because my table saw, and I don't know what's going on with it, the rip fence has decided to go a little out of whack on me, and I will have to fix that. So it's a little more than 2 feet, and this edge is not square on this side. So since I know that the edge on the far side, which is over there, is square, I'm going to be working from that side and measuring from that way. That way I know the measurements are correct over here. And since where I'm standing is going to be the inside of the, oh boy, excuse me. Where I'm standing I know is going to be on the inside of the 3 foot wide pit. I'm good here. I don't mind having a little bit of extra gunk. I don't like it, but I don't mind it. So, knowing where my 24 inches in, knowing I got to come in 1.5 inches, take my pencil, which was a lovely Valentine's Day gift to somebody in this house, and I go 1.5, which is at 22.5. Alright? Then I know I got to go up 1.25 from there. So a 1/2 inch making another inch makes it at 21.25 for 1.25 inches. That's my passing siding. Now I know that that's marked. So knowing where the track center line is supposed to be, and I know everybody says that parallel to the sides of the board is not always the best way to lay track, but quite frankly, I seem to enjoy my trains running along on a smooth parallel to me, because most trains run straight anyways. It's hard to find a curved track in most cases, because most railroads like to run their trains pretty well straight. It's easier on the trains, it's easier on the track. So we just follow the line out, since I already got it marked down here. We just try to get it as straight as we possibly can. Of course, my pencil's not wanting to draw a straight line, which is making some things out of whack. But this is the main line track, and yes, I am planning on putting signals in, so it is something that is kind of nice to have. Well, now that I know where my main line is, I can come back, go up here 1.25 inches, which seems to be just about as wide as my yardstick is, to be honest with you. And yes, this is a proper yardstick. It measures for fabric, but I need to buy a different one because of the curves that I'm going to be using. I'm going to change the curve radius on these that I've already got marked, but in order to do that I got to drill new holes, and there's already enough holes in this yardstick to turn it into something that looks more like Swiss cheese than a yardstick. So I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. Follow that line straight out. Why does that look crooked as hell? Sorry about my language there. I'm going to remeasure this in just to make sure that those marks were correct to begin with, because for some reason I'm not thinking that they were. No, they were. Okay. And something's out of whack somewhere and I just don't know where it is. But the lines are pretty well straight. Now the nice thing about my yardstick here is I noticed that if I put it on the center line of the track, it pretty much has clearance on both sides, the same as what the roadbed would be. So I'm thinking of doing something that I probably shouldn't do. Alright, I'm going to spin you around in the opposite direction because I've got something else to mark. So just bear with me. I might edit this out. If I leave it in, I'm sorry. Let's see if you guys got a good view at the end there. Yeah. I'm going to bring back my yardstick, which also does measure in inches. And I'm going to set it up flush with the end, which is actually just off the layout. And I'm going to mark it at 3/4 of an inch. The reason for that being is that's where I want my turnout to start. The reason why I want my turnout to start a little bit inboard from the edge of the layout is I don't want to have a complication from it going into the across that joint onto the turnout right away. So now that I know where my turnout is, I can draw down the track across the tip and across the tip here, and I can come back and complete that there. So now I know where the turnout lays for the most part. I can do the same thing up here. Get it right back on the track center line, adjust it forward and backwards until it meets up with that mark. Nah, looks pretty good. And then draw it right on back. Now I'm going to be using these Atlas custom line turnouts on the layout with an under the table switch machine to actually work them. So that's actually going to be the turnout that's going to be used. Now, however, on the other side, you'll see that I'm going to be using a different type of turnout in order to do the track plan. The reason why is because ModelTrainStuff.com ran out of right-hand custom line turnouts right at the point in time I was going to order. My local hobby shop, which is about $3 more, so to buy 2 of them would cover shipping, they were out of left-hand custom line turnouts. So instead of splitting the difference and paying a little bit more, I decided to buy both of the turnouts at the local hobby shop. Saved me time, not necessarily money, but it wound up working out. I'm just not going to be using the regular turnouts. I've got a manual left down here, and I'll show you why. Now, it's got a nice switch machine. It does work. It will lock those points in place. Unlike leaving a custom line freehand, it just kind of wobbles. But, and it doesn't matter if you get this electric or manual, if you go to take this big old switch box off, you can still rig it up with an under the table switch machine. There's no ties on the switch machine side of the turnout. So if I go to take this off, I'm left with something that looks like it's got no ties on the opposite side of the turnout. I don't like that. I like the detail of the custom line. I like how it looks, how it operates, but no matter what, whether you use a Caboose Industries Ground Pro or an under the table switch machine such as a Tortoise or Cobalt, or even a manual under the table switch machine such as the Blue Point, I'm going to be using the Atlas Deluxe and Standard under the table switch machines. The reason for that is I want to be able to operate some signals with the turnout throws, and I want to be able to operate some panel lights if need be. The regular standard under the table switch machine would be used to throw turnouts I don't need to know which way to throw, such as in a siding or something like that, where it's not important. There's something that I forgot to mark here. Let me get this turnout relined up on the track center line as well to its original marks on track center line. Bam. Now this spur goes off to the lumber company. Unfortunately, what I forgot to do, which I can do right now, is I need to add in the left-hand turnout. Make sure it's straight. Come right up the side of that and mark off the end there. And I'll show you a neat little trick that I learned with track planning with Atlas Track. Let me go ahead and lay that back down. Mark off this end of it. I don't know how well you guys can see that. I'm gonna move. No, I'm not gonna move the camera. I'll leave the camera sitting straight. Let me mark that straighter. Alright. Now, all Atlas Track uses a 19-inch radius curve built into the turnout. However, let me run over here to my stand real quick, where I've got all these specialty spare parts that the cats didn't knock them down. There's one of them in here. And since for the most part I'm going to be using these 19-inch radius curves for this type of work, I can get it marked up with that center line and get it lined up with where that turnout's going to be. I can actually mark out a 19-inch radius curve without having to pull out the yardstick and try to set something up funny way to the outside here. There you go, Mr. Handyman trick there. Now I'm gonna have to move the camera just a little bit, maybe a little bit more. But there we go. Oh, and then I moved the yardstick. All right, and there we go. Track center line going into the last bit of that siding. And if I wanted to be double sure on it, I can always go back, lay back in my left-hand turnout directly up to where it needs to be. Put this 19-inch radius curve back in there, and bam, follows right on through. So now I know where that 19-inch radius curve goes. Now there's going to be something a little bit more complex here going on. This here is how far in the off ramp is to the power plant. The fun part is that this yard is at 3 inches high. Alright, this is at 1 1/2 inch high, and this whole siding area down here is at 1 inch high. Alright, so I know I need 1 inch here. And the nice part is that I can freehand out that much of it, so that way I know. I want to get a little bit further away from the track. That way I know I can cut there. Alright. Now I got to figure out where I can cut that. So bear with me. I'll be back in a minute. I got to do some more measurements. Which are just spacing measurements, just like I just did, to make sure that these tracks were at the right spot, to make sure that this flows backwards a little bit. I'll be right back. Alrighty then. Sorry about the wait. I went back. I want this turnout that goes in and feeds to the power plant to be 24 inches back from the front. I want it there kind of as a dispatcher's nightmare. Alright. So I'm marking out for this turnout. Alright. This is the nice part about not having a super complex layout, especially if you're going to be working in sections like this. Now I've already marked out where everything pretty much goes. I'm going to spin you around again. This line that I'm just about to mark is on a 16-inch center. Well, 16 inches from that side. So I'm going to go back in here This is going to raise a 1/2 inch in the length of track that it's got to go. So let's go ahead and mark it down. I want to go pretty much all the way back to where I see that turnout. And this will be helpful in more than one way. Alright. Now the turnout that I marked is literally right underneath the camera. And if I move it back just a hair bit, you might be able to see it. Should be able to see it. It's right there. Alright. Now knowing that that turnout is there, alright, I'm going to replace it for a second. Alright. Now I'm just going to hold it there for a second. So I'm going to go do another trick to make sure that I get a straight line. And this one here, you might find actually kind of crazy. But then again, I'm a crazy person. Atlas Flex Track doesn't look like it can hold it straight, does it? But believe it or not, when it's laid down pretty flat, it actually can be made to be fairly straight. Just like so, really. Once you make it to where you think it's straight, you can always come back and butt it with a yardstick. Yeah. It's kind of hard to do, is to hold a turnout and hold a yardstick and hold a piece of flex track. Alright. Once we get that yardstick pinned to it, literally come back with a pencil around a rough mark right there. Okay. Now we can do a guesstimate of the track center line by trying to make it as straight as we can to that previous line. And I got the camera on the wrong side of this, so give me 1 second. Okay, now we see we got pretty well equal distance. Alright, I can guess where the track center line is. Just a little bit more in. Alright, there we go. Now I can guess where that track center line is. I can mark it right on out. Alright, that's close enough for me. Once that's marked out, I can actually go up here, and I'm going to have to move the camera back again because I bet you I'm out of view. I can come up here with this 19-inch radius curve. I can lay it in place, and I can mark just a 19-inch radius curve. And there we go. Now we know where that 19-inch radius curve is going to lay. We know where our straight line is, so we have a good idea where our track is. That's about how easy it is. And I've gone up here and done the same thing with the yard tracks and everything else, so they should be good too. So now I know where all this junk is, so now I can start to lighten the layout. Well, I don't need this big old line here, so I'm going to go back through with the pencil eraser. Get as much of that crap off of there as possible. Alright, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this yardstick and I'm going to start marking from where the center line is to the outside. Alright. Now the reason why I'm using the width of the yardstick is I already know it's more than wide enough Okay. And come back here and do some stuff that's a little out of whack. It doesn't really matter. Try to erase that a little bit. And if I use this yardstick, I know that no matter what, even if my lines are a little bit off, I can actually know that I'm going to be able to get a pretty correct fit when it comes to the track. So I gotta mark both sides of the mine track, which gives me pretty much a 2-inch wide path for the track to sit on. Having that kind of space lets me know that I'm well I want to be safe. I want to take this gunk out of here. And it'll save me a lot of weight, a lot of lifting and groaning and grunting when I go to move this. Now I could fill in between these tracks with almost anything, so I'm not too worried about that. There's a lot of lightweight products out there, and where you got places that you can take out, mark with an X. That way you know which side's scrap and which side you need to keep, and you know to always cut on the side of the line with the X. Now this way of skeleting a bench work leads to less weight from wood. Also leads to more wood for the project, believe it or not. Now I know that whole section there can actually be removed. Now once removed, that just saved me about maybe 2 pounds of weight. So this thing's going to go from probably weighing about 30, 40 pounds to a lot less, which is nice. I've got this whole big wide V-shaped section in here that can also go. Any weight you could save on a portable layout, trust me, it's the direction you want to be going. You're going to have to lift this. You're going to have to lug this. Now, from an engineering standpoint, you might think this is going to weaken the layout. Believe it or not, the extra weight of the unused portions of this layout lead to weakening the layout, because you're putting extra weight on the frame that you don't need to be putting on the frame to start with. So there you go. Now I've got this huge section here which can be cut out, and this section in here that can be cut out, which saves me a lot of effort when I go to move this. So, do you have any questions on anything more from here? I'll be right back with final thoughts, so let me know in the comment section if you have any suggestions or anything for me on the track planning aspect. I like to do it this way. It doesn't mean that everybody can do it this way. There's 1,000 ways to do bench work. Just let me know what you're thinking.